Hello, my name's Rebecca, and I live in Detroit. I took over a house in 2013 during the polar vortex. And I've had a lot of people ask me to share my story. They want to know my story. They want to know how I did what I did. So here I am. Nervous as fuck. I'm doing it anyways, though. Okay, so 2013, just got out of a domestic violence relationship. Back in August, I went to a shelter, did what everybody fucking told me to do, took all the steps, signed up for Section 8, signed up for low-income housing. I had an eviction record, so I couldn't get into a house. Spent my 90 days at the shelter, and they booted me out as per protocol. So I was in my van, riding dirty, no license, bogue plate, I mean, the whole fucking shebang, warrants for my arrest, all that shit, which is how I got into the situation to begin with. At any rate, so there I'm in my van. I found out I was pregnant with my daughter, Honesty, and I had 4 other kids with me, ages 15 to 2. So we're in my van. I called all the shelters. All the shelters were full. I had nowhere to go. I had no one to depend on. And the weather was getting colder. It was the beginning of the polar vortex in 2013. And I had considered going up into a house while I was at the shelter because I kind of figured I was going to get kicked out before I had found housing, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And as soon as I found out I was pregnant, I had an examination. The doctor told me I had placenta previa and that I was not going to be able to work. So that scared me too, because it put me in a very vulnerable position physically and emotionally also, because their father was locked up for the abuse and for drug use. He's getting his shit together right now. That's another story. But anyways, so there I am in my van, pregnant with the kids, and I'd kind of been checking houses out, and the heater went out in the van. So I picked this house particularly because it had windows, stink pipe, wiring was still in the walls, it had a toilet, and it had a natural fireplace, so I knew I'd be able to keep us warm. Came into the house. It looked like a crackhead had been living here. Like, there hadn't been any action in a while, but there's a bunch of electronics broken apart, brass doorknobs, keys. He had been going through the whole neighborhood. And the iron bathtub upstairs was broke. It had been all smashed into pieces, sharp pieces. But as soon as I walked in, once I saw that it had like the requirements I was looking for, the fireplace and all that, I was like, this is the one. It was really good condition, structurally sound, roof was good, no leaks in the basement, like from what I could tell. And it was going to have room for my family, because I was like, if I'm going to go in a house, I'm going to take the house over. I'm going to try to make it mine. Otherwise, I'm not doing it. Either I'm doing it all the way or not fucking doing it at all. So I came in, and it looked like this guy had tried to build a fire in the fireplace. There was obviously a crack smoker and whatever going through the houses, scrapping them out. He tried to make a fire in the fireplace while the damper was rusted shut. So he tried to make a fire, and he almost burnt the place down. So I go in there, I pull all the shit out of there, and I look up there with my flashlight, and I can see that the damper's closed, right? So I try to like shove something in there, and it's stuck. So I just pull the rest of the shit out, and I climb into the fucking fireplace, and I just fucking kicked the damper open, and then took a paint scraper and stuck it in there, opened that shit up, went and got some wood, started a fire for my babies. I grabbed some blankets, I cordoned the rooms off so that only the living room was going to be heated, but it would be heated well. I blacked off all the windows. I bought some tea candles to add to the heat, and also for light source, so that people knew that like somebody's in this house. So don't fuck around, And then immediately started securing it. Within a couple days, I had bought locks. I called the post office since it's an abando. It had a board on the front door. I called and told the post office that I needed mail sent because the house was mine and I needed to have mail sent while I was fixing it up. So that was taken care of. Got the address on my deed within the month. And I had a buddy of mine who used to scrap out houses over in Brightmoor. He got me a pole with a meter box on it. And we took my drill, got the drill bit we needed, the star bit, and put that bitch up right in the middle of the fucking polar vortex in the middle of probably the first few weeks of December. And damn near broke the bit in the drill because it was so fucking cold out. The shit did not want to work, but we were able to get it up. And he helped me hook the box up because it did have a circuitry box on the inside. He helped me hook the box up, and then I ran the neutral line, what do you call it? The ground wire. From that to the water. The water at the time, somebody had scrapped out the pipes and it was just it was running across the floor into the drain. The water was like drizzling. So I took that pipe, put a spigot on it, went over to Home Depot's and bought an industrial hose, the kind they use at tire shops. Like, it holds pressure 100% of the time. And it's it's more durable, so you can have hot water in it and it's not going to come apart. So I got a pressurized hose that cost about $30. Hooked that up with a spigot attachment to the basement, brought that up, put one of those 7 option hose attachments on the end of it. And I had a water source. I was driving down the street and I had in mind that I always wanted this farmhouse sink, like a big white deep one with 2 sides. I could do like big loads of dishes, like wash a whole turkey in it or like whatever, something for a big family. And I wanted it to be heavy duty and durable. So I'm driving down the street over on Butler where I used to live, and I just look to the side of the road and I see this sink. It's just sitting out there. To the garbage, and it still had like the faucet attachments on it and stuff. They were rusted out, but it looked like it was in good condition. It could be easily cleaned up, and if any of the enamel or the porcelain was chipped, they got those little kits you can fix the shit. So I took my van, opened the hatch, lifted that bitch up, put it in the back of my van, and I had taken it over to the house. And then I had a buddy of mine make a wood frame for it, and we got the sink onto the wood frame. My daughter helped me carry it in from the van because I was not supposed to be lifting anything at the time. I really actually probably didn't max my body out as much as I would have if I had been working, but I did work harder than I should have during my pregnancy just to ensure the survival of the kids through the winter. We had a girlfriend's house that we stayed at on some of the really frigid days when we were in here, and it was just like so fucking cold that I was afraid that if we fell asleep, we wouldn't wake up. The cold is no joke, and I tell people all the time, like, if you think you're going to lose limbs, if your body's hurting, if you feel like you're going to die and you're in danger, go into one of these houses because your life is more valuable than any house or any stupid law trying to forbid you from taking a place over. Homesteading is something that's been done, all over the United States for the history of it, and all over the world, still being done to this day. So if you're in a situation where you feel like your life is in danger and you need to get warm and be safe, do not feel guilty, do not apologize, do what you have to do, and fight your way from there. And the powers that be will make a way for you if you have faith. So I came into the house, I got the fire started, got everything cordoned off, started, I got new locks on the doors. I had to have just like a hook lock with a padlock on the back door at first. And the front one was boarded off. I had to have the door taken off. So me and my daughter were driving around. She was 15 at the time, Sam. And we're driving around looking at bandos trying to find this certain door because it was a round door, like arched at the top, and it had to be just the right size, just the right curve, all that. So we find this door. It's hanging off this burnout, and I was prepared. I had my drill, I had some rope. So me and her, like, there was a couple hinges that were kind of hanging that were easy to take off. So we were able to get the door off. So we're in front of the bando, this fucking burnout. We get the door, we take it, put it on top of my van, tied it down to the top with the like rack, and drove it over. And it was too big. So I'm like, now what do we do? So I actually had my dad come over, and he had a chainsaw, and I actually like drew the line and he cut it by hand. He did not want me to move over here. He was scared for me because I'm moving further into Detroit. He's a racist prick. But I was like, fuck that. I'm not going to, there's no sense in continuing to try and live beyond your means. And that was what I had tried to do. I had an apartment in Canton. I had an apartment in Waterford. I rented rooms, and the cost of living was difficult for me to keep up with because one little thing would go wrong. Like my car would need a part and it would be broke down. And like I had a really good job at Detroit newspapers that I had to resign from because I had lack of a vehicle. I mean, so one hit, you know, you lose your job, you lose your car, you lose your job, you lose your house, you know, like it happens so fast. And I know that there's millions and millions of people out there that have gone through and are going through and in the future will go through these kind of situations. And that's one of the reasons why I'm making this video. So we came into the house. I did have a bridge card, so I was able to get food, which we cooked over the open fire. I found like a little grate from an old grill and put it on there. I had my sink in. The only wiring in the house that was not cut in the basement was the 220 plug from the box to where the stove was supposed to be in the kitchen. So I had somebody donate me a stove and drop it off. At that point in time, I had DTE come and turn everything on. They checked the box in the basement, checked that there was the ground wire, the whole setup like that, and gave me the okay, and they turned it on. So I had like just the 220 plug, no other wires. I had like a 220 plug in the basement, and there was like, I think one that could be plugged in. So I started out with, an extension cord and one of those little plug-in double burners that you can move around. And there was a big soup pot in the house, like as big as a chair. I mean, I still have it. It's in the backyard. It's got a hole in the back of it now. But, so I would fill the pot with water. I would heat it up on the double burner. And then I was going through and cleaning. I was scrubbing all the floors. I was scrubbing all the counters, cleaning the bathroom, stuff like that. There were a few days that my kids were able to stay temporarily with a friend, just so that I could get things in order where it would be safe for them to stay here. So there I was, pregnant, placenta previa, all on my own, like skin of my teeth. I had no clue like what the next day was going to bring or how I was going to pull this off. I just knew that, you know, with all these empty houses and the fact that like there's no way to cross check. Like you can have a landlord that's wearing a suit. They got nice business cards. You sign your paperwork in a fancy suite out in, you know, Northville, and then you find out that the person who owns the property wasn't paying their taxes. You still get evicted. You know, I had been through a couple situations where the sewer line had broken in the basement. The guy was a real estate agent that leased it to me, and he didn't want to fix it. And like turds floating in the basement kind of stuff. It was horrible. Like I just been through so much crap with people and dealt with these situations when it came to rental properties and properties going to foreclosure. And this was, you know, right after the housing market crash of 2008. So this is 2008 to 2013. Like everything was sliding down and people were getting booted out of houses and stuff. So I was kind of familiar with how some of the stuff worked. And I was also familiar, because of being an activist, I was familiar with the treasurer's office, and like, how do you find out the status of the house? And the status of this house was in delinquent status. So it wasn't completely in foreclosure. It was kind of like in this limbo area. And I knew that because it wasn't a bank-owned property, no one would be checking on it. So that was part of my reasoning too. So I came in the house and basically just started fixing everything up. Like I said, I installed the sink. I got a new toilet installed. I got a pedestal sink that I bought from Habitat for Humanity. Painted the fireplace, painted the walls, chipped a lot of the paint that was hanging off the ceiling and stuff. And at the time I still didn't have any piping. But I was able to get some new wiring ran and some plugs installed, just a few, so that I could run electric heaters. Outside of where I was kind of sort of crashing, but she was getting evicted and for tax foreclosure too, so I couldn't stay there. But I also had an open CPS case at the time, and that was where I was checking in and having meetings and stuff like that, so that I was in compliance and that the case would be able to be closed. While I was at the shelter, one of the things that really happened that blew everything out of proportion, there was 2 incidences at the shelter where CPS was contacted. And so this case was open. Both times I had nothing. I had no control over what had happened. One morning, my son was running down the stairs in front of me to breakfast. And one of the girls that was staying with us at the shelter, she had set a small cup of bleach on the breakfast table. And he ran downstairs, thought it was water, and drank it. Like, I was literally coming down the stairs as this happened. So CPS was contacted at that point in time. He went to the hospital. He ended up being fine. And then the other time was when I was on my way back from a cleaning job, and I was on 696, and I was in gridlock traffic. And I called them, and I said, hey, I'm going to be late because I'm in the middle of traffic jam. And he was getting off the bus. And their policy was to call CPS if the parent's not there when they get off the bus. So they called CPS. Even though I called, the situation was outside of my control. So anyways, I had this over my head. I needed to get this case closed. So I was dealing with that while being pregnant, trying to squat in a house, running from the police, dealing with baby daddy's trial and all that kind of stuff. But I got us through the winter. In the early spring, I had gone to a cleaning job because I've been a self-employed housekeeper off and on for 20 years now. I went to a job and I dropped a can of Comet on my toe, and the wound didn't heal. So here I am pregnant. I get a big old tummy. I'm due in 3 months, and I got this wound. It's not healing, and it's starting to hurt more. I put antibiotic ointment on it. I tried icing it. I tried Epsom salts, and then I went to sleep after I took some pain pills. Well, I got up at 3, 4 in the morning, and the pain had gone all the way up my leg. So, I'm not the kind of person who goes into the doctor. I try to wait shit out. I try to figure out, okay, is this really serious? So I tried to wait it out, and the pain just kept going further and further up my leg. So I'm like, oh my God, this is scaring the shit out of me. I got to go into the hospital. So I ended up going to the hospital. I had cellulitis. They tried 3 different antibiotics, one of which I was allergic to. And I ended up spending 2 weeks in the hospital while my kids were at my girlfriend's house. And I was basically fighting for my life. Then when July came around, I ended up giving birth to I went labor on July 4th at 4 o'clock in the morning. So I'm in my abando, and it's summertime, and I'm pregnant, and it was 4 in the morning. Nobody had answered their phones because I did have a list of people to call in the situation, but everybody was sleeping, so nobody answered their phones. So I literally had to get in my van with my kids, and my oldest daughter rode in the passenger seat and kind of helped me navigate because I was having contractions while I was driving my kids to my dad's house, dropping them off, and then I drove all the way to Hutzel Hospital downtown to have Honesty Isabella on July 4th. And she's a wonderful, beautiful little girl. And all of this, it was able to happen, you know, because I was brave enough to do this, to take this house over. And I just stood true in my heart to what I needed to do. The following October, there was, no, actually that was 2015. 2015, the house went to auction, and the original owner, who lived in England, had never saw the property and just basically must have purchased it online and then just never did anything with it. He was, I guess, planning to repurchase at auction, maybe. So it turned out that he couldn't do that, but he basically sicked a management company on me, and they started evicting me through the court. And at that point in time, I called Detroit Eviction Defense. I actually called my girlfriend Val, and she referred me to Detroit Eviction Defense. And Detroit Eviction Defense is an offshoot of Occupy Detroit, from the Occupy movement. They referred me to a lawyer, and I started fighting in court for my house. He wouldn't drop the eviction, so Detroit Eviction Defense and I organized a protest outside the management company's office on Main Street in Plymouth. And after about a half an hour of demonstrating, they came downstairs and said they were dropping the eviction, which I was super happy about because that meant that it was going to go to auction, but, you know, he wasn't going to be able to get it. It might have been up for grabs, but at least I'd have like a bigger chance of being able to own the property. So at that point, I found out that in order to enter the auction, I think you had to have like $1,500 or $2,500 or something like that. So, and I was asked out because of that. I've not had a license in, God, now it's been 13 years since I've had a driver's license. So I've never been in a position to be able to maintain full-time employment. It's hard for me. Like, I came into the hood because of this issue getting worse and worse. And because as an activist, I wanted to be closer to events and people that I knew. So got through the management company, and I just prayed to God that nobody would purchase the property at auction. And they did not. So then the property went to the land bank. And it was at this point in time, after it went to the land bank, they were booting like thousands of people out of these houses. And we were going to the hearings, and we were going to the treasurer's office and demonstrating. And that was when I burned my tax bill in front of the treasurer's office because I was just, you know, I was enraged that so many people were being put out of these houses, and that being put out of the houses meant the destruction of all the properties and the property values going down. And, you know, people thinking that squatters are, you know, 100% a bad thing because they're all going to, you know, destroy the properties and stuff, which isn't true. You know, if you have people that need shelter and they're appreciative of that shelter, especially people like, you know, women with children, then you definitely, it's a good thing. You know, it keeps the houses in stable condition, which means the property values at least can rise. And also, you know, you're housing families that need to get back on their feet, and, you know, whatever that looks like. And you really you don't know how quickly you can end up in a situation like this until it actually happens to you. How I became an activist is DTE showed up. For anybody who does not live in Detroit, DTE is the energy, electric, and gas provider in the city of Detroit. DTE showed up on a Friday at my rental house over on Bentler Street. My son Chance was 3 months old. They showed up on a Friday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the day before a snowstorm, to shut off my gas and my electric at the same time. And I had a 3-month-old in the house. That was the day I became an activist. That was right before... or right after Occupy had started. You know, right after, it was within days. That was the day I became an activist, because for elderly, for veterans, for children to be put out in the cold, or be put in any kind of position ever where they have to worry about their lives, is disturbing and wrong. it is wrong that there are people in this country that have so much money that they could throw it up in the air at you all day long and it's not even going to make a dent, but you can't, they won't share that with you. Everybody, I believe, I have a very strong belief, everybody should have shelter, everybody should have food, everybody should have water. I absolutely believe in water rights. So because of the situation I was in, because I didn't have income steadily, about a month after I had given birth to my daughter, my van had gotten stolen. So there was a lot of different, there was a lot of different uphill battles, multiple uphill battles on the same mountain that I needed to get through in order to make everything work. So anyways, it went to auction. I ended up burning my tax bill at a demonstration in front of the treasurer's office, at which point, along with several different groups in the city who were all pushing for some kind of a concession with people to be able to stay in their homes and in all these properties. Also, you know, these hardest hit funds that were supposed to be put into people keeping their houses was put towards just demolition only. So let's make it look all pretty, and there's thousands of people fucking dying and freezing and losing limbs in the streets. So this is why I took over my house. I did it for myself. I did it for my kids. I did it for people everywhere in the city of Detroit. I did it for people all over the United States, because when programs like this are created, these kind of things set precedent, and that's so very important. And it's so very important to fight for the rights and the things that you believe in, because everybody has a right to be safe and to live. Otherwise, our Constitution just a piece of paper. So that's the basics of how I got my property. I was put on a payment plan at $150 a month for 18 months after I had put in $1,000 initially with the land bank. So this was the concession that they made. They created the buyback program, and so after 5 years, or almost 5 years of fighting for my house, on August 14th of 2018, I was given the deed to my house by the mayor of the city of Detroit. So as much as I dislike many politicians and their choices, I did choose to accept the deed from the mayor, because his demolition project would have demolished this house and probably a lot of other ones in the area. And I believe that my presence here has been a stabilizing force in the community. We're across the street from 2 schools. Children walk through this alley every single day next to my house coming home from school. So this has become a safer, more stable place, not only for my children and myself, but for the community. And I know that anybody who knows how I have biked wood and laundry and groceries with a bike and cart, how I have walked the stuff, how I've bussed the stuff. Anybody who knows me in this area understands that I have worked damn hard to be in the position that I am. 5 years ago, I was picking through garbage, and starting over from scratch. I had nothing but a few boxes. And now I have a 5-bedroom house, 1,900 square feet. I spent about $3,000 to purchase it, and I've put a couple $1,000s into repairs, and I'm going to be starting to make more repairs once I am able to achieve a home loan, and then I'll be doing a lot more stuff with it. But you know, it's listed on Zillow for like 40 grand, so it's a good investment, and it's the most stability that my children have ever known in their lives. So I wanted to share my story. This is part 1 of how Rebecca came into a house during the polar vortex. And like I said, I encourage anybody who is in that kind of situation, if it's an emergency and you think that you're going to die in the cold, do not feel ashamed. Do not feel guilty. Do not apologize. You come into a house and you do what you have to do to stay alive, because your life is more important than any boards and concrete and any government bureaucracy that wants to tell you that you're not important enough to live. Thank you. I love you. This is why I do what I do.